This is Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs program discussing the important crossroad of religion in life, produced by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues throughout our area. Now, today's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
Hello, I'm Richard Thompson, pastor of Central Presbyterian Church, and your host for this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. And today we're pleased to bring into view what is happening in our society when an 18-year-old youngster will have seen 200,000 acts of violence on television, as reported by U.S. News and World Report. Does this much exposure to mayhem and murder contribute to the real-life violence of the nation? Or is there no clear connection between fantasy and the facts? What should the television industry be doing about this issue, if anything? What should the religious community be doing about it? Well, one thing for sure is that Austin Metropolitan Ministries is responding to these questions as we're spending time today on Austin Faith Dialogue discussing television violence with two persons who are well positioned to offer commentary on the subject. These people are Deborah York, news director at KTBC TV, Channel 7, and Terry McDaniel, an active Catholic layman who has worked actively with the Austin Diocese in the field of media and communications. We welcome you both.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And we're going to pause just for a moment to take a look first at a footage that has been provided by KTBC TV, airing on August the 1st, showing how Bishop McCarthy's letter was read in the churches of the Catholic Diocese.
11 o'clock Mass at St. Teresa's Catholic Church in Northwest Austin was much like any other Sunday. But today, Monsignor Ed Jordan had a letter to share with his congregation from Bishop John McCarthy of Austin, who urged the parishioners to decide for themselves whether television and other forms of media are undermining society's standards of decency and morality.
Today, we insist on high standards of automobile safety, food quality, and environmental preservation. We should also insist on high quality in media products.
Cable channels like MTV have long been at the center of heated debate over just how so-called violent and sexual images affect society. Some parishioners we talk to say sometimes it boils down to who controls the television.
The problem is children who are not being parented are the ones who are winding up in the jails and prisons. And those who are being parented, the parents can help turn off TV sets, things like that.
If we don't take some control over what's being published over TV, we're going to ruin this country. Our kids are seeing things that are just not realistic at all.
Marie Johnson, who is a mother of 4, says she lets her children watch channels like the Disney Channel, but recently cut off her cable because MTV could not be locked out.
And I wanted to monitor MTV and have more control over it because I cannot monitor every minute of television in the home. And some of the things I was seeing on MTV were really upsetting to me, and I didn't want them constantly getting that kind of message.
A booklet passed out among the parishioners included a survey to analyze the media tactics used to attract an audience. Many of St. Teresa's parishioners say it will be a long, enduring search for quality entertainment.
I don't think that that we're as selective as we can be, and as a result of that, there's more permissiveness. It's become acceptable.
Opinions on the media's role in society do vary, but for the most part, the people we talked to today say they hope that there will be a positive change in the media, one that would foster more favorable opinions. Marcus Cooper, Channel 7 News.
We're back to discuss this video clip and other issues pertaining to television violence with our guests Deborah York and Terry McBride. And Terry, as a person who helped develop that approach with the diocese and active with the communications otherwise, give us a little bit of a sense of how that particular piece came about.
Well, Richard, the bishop's pastoral letter was really the latest effort by the bishop to express his concerns about what's happening in the entertainment media. and also his efforts to do something about that in terms of educating the members of the Central Texas Diocese here and giving them some education perhaps about what they can do about their concerns about media products. The committee that I represent is an advisor to the bishop and to the diocese, and this diocese is very big, as you know, some 300,000 members that are here in Central Texas, Catholics, over 100 churches in the diocese, and there are many parents, many families that are very concerned about the values that they think are coming through the media, TV, and movies and music today. So the pastoral letter was the latest effort by the bishop, who has been working in this area actively for some years. The media committee that I represent again has been working with the bishop for about 3 years. And we have a number of approaches that we have initiated to educate and enlighten the members of the diocese.
Okay, so you've been at it for a while, and you're not simply sending up warning flags about the dangers of violence on television, but trying to be constructive in how to deal with that.
Yes, that's correct.
And Deborah is the news director here at Channel 7. We heard that you recently came to the station. We welcome you to Austin.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be in Austin, very happy to be in Austin. And you know, I welcome the approach that the Catholic churches are taking, because I came here from Tyler, Texas, and even a small community like Tyler, over the past year or two, we've been seeing an increase in the number of violent acts and activities on the part of young people. So I think that, you know, violence among youth is a concern, and there are a number of different approaches that we need to take as far as solving the problem. And I think that reaching out to parents and a sort of a grassroots effort is probably one of the best ways of doing that. As a member of the broadcast community, I am concerned about any sort of government legislation, regulation, and censorship. And I think that one of the ways to get the networks to respond and to reduce violence on television programming specifically, is for people in this country to voice their opinions about it. I do work for television stations, and though I'm not directly involved in programming as a part of a television station, I do know that the people in the industry respond to viewers who call and write and complain, and I think that's an effective way of getting change. So I think that what the churches are doing. I'm also a mother. I have two boys, and so violence in the media is something that does concern me as well. And I think this is good. A welcomed effort.
Well, I think that one thing that we'll want to do is emphasize today what can be done to what is, I think, an obviously broad felt concern. I read somewhere that 80% of people in the nation feel that violence on television, that there's too much of it and that it's having a negative impact. But before we talk about what to do about it and assume that it's the dimensions of the problem, I'd like to run something by you. This is, I'm going to play devil's advocate here by means of which is strange for a pastor to do, right? But here is from the Austin American-Statesman, editorial, television violence debate a scapegoat for societal decline. And the point that they make is, they don't doubt the fact that you've got like, what was it, 1,800 acts of violence in a given day on 18 channels over an 18-hour period sort of thing. But some European nations show many of the violent American programs on their television channels, yet do not have the same level of social violence. Other nations, Japan as a prominent example, have far more violent television, movies, comic books, and other such media than we do, yet have lower levels of violence. So if they have as much or more of this kind of murder and mayhem over the media, then the question that this raises is this really the cause of social misbehavior, or is that overblown as a cause? Terry, I want to give you first crack at that.
Well, Richard, I think that in terms of television being the cause for the problems of society, I mean, this is a ridiculous notion. Certainly television is not the cause of all of our problems. nor movies, nor you know, or any particular faction of the entire culture. What we are talking about here is an entire system. We're talking about a culture. So television and the media have to be taken and analyzed with respect to that. To take the media in Japan, for example, which is a very homogeneous, regimented society, that I will tell you also imposes very heavy penalties on violence, among other things. And to compare that to the American culture is comparing apples and oranges. So I think we have to really look at television within the context of our society. Mm-hmm. And the studies that have been done, there have been significant studies over the past 30 years that have been done by extremely legitimate organizations. I'm not talking about some small group that has a particular agenda out somewhere. I'm talking about the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, major universities, University of Pennsylvania, the University of Washington. There are major studies, some 3,000 studies have been done, the majority of which do very specifically link television, violence, or behavior on television with the behavior of people in the society.
So you're saying that they're showing causal connections between what they see on the media and what they do out on the streets or in their homes or whatever.
There is very definitely causal connection. And the debate at this point, I will tell you frankly, should move beyond that. Mm-hmm. The Austin Statesman, I mean, this is an editorial, and it's significant that an editorial that followed this one actually made the point that television and the entertainment media, it was really time that they began to take some responsibility coupled with the freedoms that they enjoy, mm-hmm. which is true of every other industry in this country. The automobile industry, not on its own necessarily, but certainly through the laws that government and regulations have imposed, are building much safer automobiles than they did just a few years ago.
Okay, well, I think you pressed a hot button here when you said regulation.
So you all mean government regulation for television. Well, as I said earlier, you know, I would be very wary of any government regulation solving any problems in the media. My opinion about the Statesman editorial is I have in somewhat agreement. I think that they go too far. I think violence in the media is one issue which is contributing to violence among our youth, but it is only one. It is only one part of the environment. And the problem today is television has become such a major part of our environment that I don't doubt that it has some influence. But that to say that to address the issue means to ignore the other issues such as a lower standard of education, joblessness, low self-esteem, and all the other problems that are affecting youth in growing areas in this country.
Family disintegration and so on.
Certainly, certainly. I don't think that if we address the issue of violence in the media that we necessarily have to ignore those other issues.
Yeah, well, and I guess you could also raise
the sounds like that's what they're saying is taking place, and I don't think that that's true.
Yeah. And I think you could speculate, wonder if there were regulation and, you know, everything was just clean gene on TV, you'd still have a violent society. I mean, all these factors are still
certainly would, because of all the other factors that exist. And the things that we report on in news every day. We're out there and we're talking to youth and we're seeing what they're doing, and there's no doubt in my mind in the 15 years I've been a journalist, and by journalist I mean on the local level, a local journalist, that there is an attitude out there among the youth that didn't exist 20 years ago. And it has to do with, I think, breakdowns in the family. And those have roots in other areas of our society, and these probably started before violence in television became such an issue.
Well, those are deep enough causes and roots that we're not going to be able to solve that one today, but we'll do well if we, after we come back from our break, talk about what can be done to make for creative and responsible media and journalism, electronic media. And I think that not just what the industry can do, but what the religious community can do, which is, I understand this is the import of the bishop's letter. And so if you could be thinking about that just for a few moments, then we'll come right back to it. In the meantime, we hope you folks will stay with us as we continue our discussion of television violence right after this.
Serving Austin means serving you. Each day, Austin Metropolitan Ministries is Religion in Action, providing affordable housing, caring for the elderly, marching against hunger, and much more. AMM promotes understanding, cooperation, and social involvement. So when we ask for your help, we're really asking to help you, Austin. To find out how you can help Austin Metropolitan Ministries help Austin through its member organizations, just call 472-7627.
We're back on Austin Faith Dialogue, talking today about television violence, and having with us Deborah York, the news director here at KTBC TV, Channel 7, and we're also having Terry McBride, a businessman here in the community, but whose work with the Diocese of the Catholic Church has been involving response to electronic issues. And I'd like, Terry, just as we come back into this, give us an answer. How about that? Just 2 or 3 things that not only Catholic churches, but the religious community as a whole can do that's constructive in responding to this, what I think we realize is a legitimate issue as far as violence on the tube.
Well, Richard, I think that in terms of individuals, certainly they should take more responsibility for the entertainment products that are consumed by their children and by their family. By themselves, really, because children are wonderful at following example. But one of the difficulties that parents and individuals have today is that the entertainment industry is such a gigantic industry today that many times parents, a lot of entertainment is coming right by them into the home. A lot of entertainment, many entertainment products, particularly in areas outside of television, for example, in movies and music products, are really pitched at children. MTV on television is pitched at children, and not a lot of adults really enjoy this, sitting down and getting these jolts per second type of.
Are you talking about censorship at home?
Well, I think censorship is certainly within the realm of responsibilities of parents. I mean, that's something that parents should be doing.
Do you think that's what it means to be a parent?
Certainly, and they should be establishing standards. I would encourage individuals that are interested, or church groups, to join with us in the Catholic Diocese. We have this media committee effort that's been going on for some 3 years now. We would love to make this an ecumenical effort in our community. And we have, I wish people would call me or call Helen Osman, who is editor of Catholic Spirit. I believe we have a couple of telephone numbers that we could put up on the screen for the viewers. We would love to have others in the community join us in an effort not to censor the media per se, but to bring some order to the use of this, of the media, of entertainment products in the home.
Okay, so I hear you're saying that you not only have the individual parents in a given home that have responsibility to regulate, you know, what flows into their children's consciousness and the values that are imparted that way, but that also you're encouraging almost like support groups within the religious community of parents to get together and say, well, how can we help each other in this value formation process, and that you've got something already going like that.
Yes, we do have representatives at the church level. In the Catholic Church, we have a number of representatives that are out in the field that receive information and then disseminate that information to their particular congregations. So we do have that sort of network. It's a small network now. I wish it were larger. But we're still feeling our way along.
Okay.
And we're very concerned about that balance and about that compromise that must be made when we're dealing in this area of information and ideas between First Amendment, clear First Amendment rights, and the responsibilities, on the other hand, that not only parents but the entertainment industry as an institution has to the society.
Okay. I think if anybody wants to find out more about what you're doing within the diocese, they can call the diocese office
Certainly.
And ask for that material or that contact. I'd like to talk about First Amendment rights here a little bit, just because I think that's the censorship issue.
Well, I think that what Terry's talking about, censorship in the home, is the best way to affect change, and I said that earlier. I think the education of parents and society about the problems of violence in the media, to convince society and parents that violence in the media is having an effect on youth, is important. For my part, in the news industry, which is what I feel most comfortable about talking about, I think that we have an obligation to report on what the churches are doing, to report on what the civic groups are doing and saying, and the concerns that are being raised in our society. And thereby the news plays a part in further educating parents that may not have paid much attention to violence in the media, may not be as aware of the effect that primetime programming, MTV and music industry may be having on their children. And if they are aware of what's happening, the problem is that the parents who are aware and are supervising their children, there are still untold numbers of children who aren't being supervised. Okay. And those children grow up and then they affect all of our society and all of us. And if they do become violent, then other children become victims. So we need to be directing our efforts at the parents and the kids who aren't at the moment being supervised. Now that might sound like an argument to censor television in order to protect the children of parents who aren't giving the proper supervision, but I think that the better route would be to continue to educate society and to spread the word among parents.
You're seconding his motion.
Yes.
You're saying that's a good way to do it. You're saying even we on television maybe could help give some play to that and let more and more
Definitely
people know about how to be television savvy. However, Deborah, it happened in 1990 that Congress passed the Television Violence Act. It says you folks in the industry have 3 years to get your act together to minimize all of these murders and rapes and all this stuff that, you know, is sort of crammed down our collective consciousness.
And there's been no reduction in violence.
And there's been no reduction.
And your question is, then self-regulation in the industry doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's a fair question. The industry is providing programming to an audience that is receptive to it or not receptive to it. If the audience is not receptive, and directly measured by ratings, then they won't provide that programming. And what needs to take place, as I've said, and the effort that's going on among the churches, is to educate parents and society and to the problems with violence in the media, and then therefore the audience becomes unreceptive and the ratings go down, and the network executives will change their programming. And the same goes for the music industry. The kids are continuing to buy those records, then there will be,
It's a supply responding to the demand, sort of thing. All right, how would you respond to that?
I don't think that the government can dictate what the audience should be receiving in our free society.
Okay.
Well, I will say that other industries in this society over the years have been forced to respond to the government when all else failed. The automobile industry, certain industries that are polluting, and the Clean Air Act and things like this have been done by the government. Matter of fact, we're looking at health care right now because the public has essentially said that the health care industry is not responding to us, and so therefore we pull the government in on our side. The primary purpose of a business is to serve the society, to serve the common good. When businesses do not do that, and are not perceived to be doing that, then consumers enlist the aid of the government.
Okay, now we need to stop.
Well, where
kind
do
of
you
let
draw
you
the
respond.
line
Yeah. Between safety belts in the car, for instance, and.
Well, let me just finish.
I mean, there's a big difference between cars and other products than things that border on constitutional rights, free speech, free expression. And you may say, well, you can draw the line between news, for example, and entertainment, but can you? What about 48 hours? Is that entertainment or is that news? I mean, some people might try to argue in government that 48 hours is not purely news and therefore should be censored. I mean, last night's program on violence.
Let me respond to that just for 1 second. One of the interesting ideas that has come out of research that's been put forward by a fellow by the name of Newton Minow, who was formerly Federal Communications Commission chairman, is now working with the Arts and Sciences Agency. And he has come up with a proposal to say if programmers, or rather broadcasters, would merely code violent programs into the programming, and if consumers were only able to block out those programs that they wish to from their homes, that would solve the problem of constitutional rights and still parental responsibility.
A rating system
and control.
kind of thing.
A rating system, but so that parents would be empowered to choose those programs that they would like to invite into their home very specifically. And I think that's an idea that needs to be pursued.
Okay, and you would concur with that?
I would,
Yeah.
and the result would be, the results could be read in the ratings.
Well, I think as we come to the close, we're in some agreement on some things, but I think it's good for us to have a real airing of what the issues are, just not only in Austin, but throughout the country. But here in Austin, we want to thank you for taking the time to be with us,
Thank
Deborah
you.
York.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. I'd like to thank you folks also for joining us, and as we've put this focus on the issue of television violence. On behalf of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, I'm Richard Thompson, thanking you for joining us and inviting you to be with us again next week at this time. Peace be with you.
For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at 472-7627.